5 feet away, without reaching for the microphone. "Did you misunderstand me, Mr. Harris?" "Sorry, Captain, but the radio isn't working again." Reynolds' shoulders sagged involuntarily. He prided himself on keeping a ramrod-straight posture when he was on the bridge. "You're the signalman, correct?" "Yes, Captain." "The senior signal officer on deck?" "Yes, Captain." "Then go and goddamn signal the main gate and tell me what the hell is going on." "Aye, aye, Captain." Harris snapped a quick salute and swiveled his body to bolt away. "And get someone up here to fix that thing," Reynolds added. "Yes, Captain," came the reply as the young man sprinted away. Unbelievable. An $8 billion boat stuffed with $9 billion worth of everything imaginable that flew or floated or fought, and he couldn't get a goddamn working radio. And again, what did dollars matter anymore? Not more than the paper they were printed on, and there was no way anyone on the planet was going to build another piece of equipment like this nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Not for 100 years, maybe 1,000, maybe not ever again. He stretched forward to look down at the deck, the 1,000-foot-long expanse of gray metal launch and landing surface. 6 F-35s were at the ready, but they hadn't put any birds in the air since the event. Too much particulate ash up there for jets. The turboprops did better, but they still knocked the hell out of the turbines and carburetors. His men were working on it. 5,000 sailors and Marines under his command, and 100,000 more assembled at the naval base. He looked up to survey the harbor. In the distance, he could just see the USS George Washington, the only other Nimitz-class aircraft carrier that had survived, at least in the Pacific. Of the 11 in active service, 3 were lost outright, and 6 were so badly damaged from the radiation storm that they weren't operational. The Gerald Ford Group had limped in to see what remained of Norfolk Naval Base, and another was at sea in the Indian Ocean. Pearl Harbor was gone, literally. The volcanic island of Hawaii had detonated, wiping away anything, including the fleet there, within 100 miles. Communications were sporadic without the satellites they'd come to depend on, satellites that just weren't there anymore either. Captain Reynolds had had 2 weeks of warning before Nomad, and had steamed his carrier group over the deepest, darkest bit of the Pacific he could find, away from land, and as far away on the other side of the planet from Nomad at its closest approach. The latest intel before the disaster warned of a massive electromagnetic pulse-like event, and so Reynolds had his crew unbolt and torch-cut free any bit of electronics they could and hide it in the belly of the Carl Vinson. The massive metal superstructure should act as a Faraday cage to absorb most of the shock, he'd reasoned, and he'd been right. At least, it had absorbed most of it. The skies had lit up like neon signs in Times Square, and the Pacific had boiled up as if God himself were having a fit in his bathtub. But to their credit, many ships had survived to limp back here. He scanned the harbor. Almost 100 Navy ships, less than half of what the Pacific Fleet was before Nomad, but along with the military ships were thousands of merchant and civilian vessels. He let his eyes wander to the hills surrounding the harbor. At least the Coronado and Silver Strand Beach had taken the brunt of the first waves, 500-foot monsters, and protected San Diego Harbor. San Diego itself rose quickly from the water into the hills, and that had helped, although the massive earthquakes had reduced most of the buildings to rubble, despite them being built to withstand them. At least the waves weren't like the ones on the East Coast, half-mile-high walls of water moving at thousands of miles an hour that had erased New York and Boston from the face of the planet, scraping them clean to the bedrock as if they had never existed. The waves had rocketed up the Chesapeake Bay and obliterated Washington and Baltimore, washing 100 miles inland, only to be stopped by the Shenandoah Mountains of Appalachia. It was the bad luck of geometry that the Western Hemisphere was nearest to Nomad when it made its closest approach, when the tidal forces had shot up exponentially and the brunt of the solar storm radiation hit the planet. Worse still, America was close to the magnetic north, and the Earth's own normally protective magnetic field had acted as a funnel to pour a deluge of charged particles into North America, frying any electronics, even ones hardened against EMP. Nobody had planned for this. Nobody could have imagined it. Cheyenne Mountain was gone. NORAD Command, designed to withstand a direct nuclear attack from above, had been destroyed from below by the eruption.